The spectacle that was the Jake Paul vs. Mike Tyson fight took an unexpected turn after the bell rang, with both fighters receiving suspensions from boxing in the aftermath of their controversial showdown. The event, which unfolded at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, will undoubtedly be remembered for years to come, not just for the action inside the ring, but for the drama surrounding it. Jake Paul emerged victorious in a unanimous decision, but despite the win, he and Tyson now face a mandatory break from the sport. In a fight that was hyped as a clash between the old guard and the new, Mike Tyson, though showing glimpses of his former brilliance early on, couldn't keep up with Paul's pace as the rounds went on. Tyson, still a force to be reckoned with despite his age, was able to use his trademark peekaboo style to land some solid punches on Paul. However, by the third round, it was clear that Tyson was struggling. His legs, once his greatest asset, couldn't carry him with the same power they once had, and the inevitable began to unfold. Tyson, though resilient, became a target for Paul's strikes, unable to get enough in return. Despite his exhaustion, Tyson pushed through to the end of the 8-round contest, but the younger Paul was awarded the victory when the judges' scorecards were read. While Jake Paul may have emerged as the winner in the ring, the aftermath of the fight was far from straightforward. The Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, TDLR, issued suspensions for both fighters, citing a standard protocol that mandates fighters to rest for a certain period based on the number of rounds fought. Since the fight went the full 8 rounds, both Paul and Tyson are required to take 24 days off to recover 3 days of rest for each round fought. The regulation, while standard, underscored the physical toll that such a high-profile spectacle can have on fighters, regardless of their age or experience. The TDLR's statement also noted that if either fighter disagrees with the suspension, they have the right to request a hearing to prove their fitness to return to competition sooner. Beyond the fight itself, Tyson's performance was the subject of considerable debate. Commentators noted his apparent struggles with his legs and picked up on a curious behavior Tyson repeatedly seemed to bite down on his mouthguard. Some speculated that it was a sign of trouble keeping it in place, but Tyson later clarified that he was actually adjusting his mouthguard for comfort, not having trouble with it. This revelation only added another layer of intrigue to an already controversial night. While the post-fight medical suspensions were expected, what came next was a new chapter in the ongoing feud between Jake Paul and UFC President Dana White. After the fight, White had some strong words for Paul, pointing out the challenges Tyson faced during the match, particularly his age and physical limitations. White, ever the critic of Paul's boxing career, made sure to highlight that Paul couldn't capitalize on Tyson's obvious vulnerabilities, which many believed should have been exposed more thoroughly. White's comments came at the post-fight press conference for UFC 309, which occurred just one day after Paul's fight, and added fuel to the fire of the ongoing tension between the two men. Not one to shy away from a confrontation, Jake Paul quickly fired back at White's remarks, taking to social media to express his frustrations. In a pointed tweet, Paul accused White of being hypocritical, claiming that the UFC CEO had built up fighters only to tear them down once they had achieved success. He also took a jab at White's failed TV show and criticized his management style, which Paul suggested was more about White's personal agenda than caring for the fighters under his promotion. The war of words didn't end there, with Paul reiterating his disdain for White, even calling for the release of UFC star Conor McGregor, suggesting that McGregor was being held hostage by White's control over the UFC. The back and forth between Paul and White has become a familiar narrative, with Paul regularly calling out White for his treatment of fighters and his refusal to acknowledge Paul's rise in the boxing world. For Paul, this fight with Tyson, despite the criticisms and the controversies, was another step toward proving himself in the sport of boxing. And yet, despite the victory, the fight was clouded by questions of whether Tyson, at 58 years old, should have been in the ring at all. The spectacle of the event, with its over-the-top promotion and build-up, almost seemed to overshadow the actual competition within the ropes. While the fighters will now be sidelined for a few weeks, the drama surrounding the fight is far from over. The public's perception of Jake Paul's legitimacy as a boxer is still up for debate, and his ongoing feud with Dana White only adds more intrigue to his boxing journey.